Time for a quick commercial.
That's right, Ellie. This episode is brought to you by Anchor. Anchor is the easiest way to make a podcast. Anchor gives you everything you need in one place for free, which you can use right from your phone or computer. Creation tools allow you to record and edit your podcast so it sounds great. And they'll even distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard everywhere. Places like Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and many more. You can easily make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. To get started, download the Anchor app or go to anchor.fm today.
Welcome back, everyone. It's time for Throwback Thursday.
Welcome to the Lessons for Success podcast. I'm your host, Adam Wardlaw, middle school science teacher and high school football coach in South Carolina, USA. Thank you for tuning into the podcast heard by nearly 3,000 people across 17 countries, as well as almost every state here in America. These episodes are intended to be short and beneficial lessons to help you get more out of your life. You can keep up with the show on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and even TikTok by searching at L4S Show. And remember, that's the number 4. If you're listening on an iPhone, go ahead and give the show a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts to help keep our growing community going. Now let's start the show. March 26, 1804. America is still in its infancy, but our third president, Thomas Jefferson, spent this day enjoying a party and a loaf of bread so big it could only be described as Mammoth Sized. Welcome to Throwback Thursday here on the Lessons for Success show. The goal for these episodes is to look back at moments in history and see what lessons we can draw from them. When doing some research for this episode, I came across a story that I couldn't pass up because it was so bizarre. So you'll have to excuse this episode if it lacks some depth, because this story was too odd to pass up. This story is brought to you by the History Channel, and I'll leave a link in the show notes. Here it goes. On March 26, 1804, President Thomas Jefferson attends a public party at the Senate and leads a diverse crowd in consuming an enormous loaf of bread dubbed the Mammoth Loaf. The giant bread was baked to go with the leftovers of an enormous block of cheese. You see, 2 years earlier, a group of Baptist women from Massachusetts had sent Jefferson a 1,200-pound hunk of cheese in gratitude for his support of religious tolerance. The cheese, they said, illustrated Jefferson's claim that North America's superior natural resources would one day enable the U.S. to outstrip all of Europe in agricultural production. Early Americans' use of the term mammoth arose from the discovery of a giant woolly mammoth skeleton that was found in New York just 3 years before this, in 1801. Jefferson was fascinated with natural sciences. He was a member of the American Philosophical Society, and he actually helped the organization raise funds to complete the project. Jefferson's political opponents ridiculed the president's scientific side projects as frivolous. In an attempt to embarrass the president, they dubbed the giant dairy product the Mammoth cheese. To the opponents' surprise and disappointment, the general populace embraced the term dearly. Almost immediately, butcher shops and markets advertised having mammoth-sized products, from veal to pumpkins to loaves of bread. The unveiling of the Mammoth Loaf occurred at a Senate-sponsored March 26th party. At noon, a Navy baker wheeled in the mammoth piece of bread along with the remnants of the piece of cheese, which was equally enormous, and then some roast beef and quite a bit of adult beverages. President Jefferson stepped up, pulled out his pocket knife, and cut the first slice of bread. According to some people who wrote down what they saw, the party quickly turned into a noisy affair. So what can we draw from this story? I think a moral we can pull from this moment in history is that others may try to put you down or mock you for what you enjoy or believe to be right. Jefferson's rivals wanted to make fun of his love for science, but it backfired when Jefferson stayed true to himself and embraced it fully, along with many of his supporters. So as you go about in your own life, don't let your detractors keep you from being who you are and what you believe in. Not everyone's going to agree with you and what you believe to be important or worthwhile. But stay true to yourself, and in the grand scheme of things, you'll have a much more fulfilling life. I hope you've enjoyed this moment in history. Have you ever eaten anything that was mammoth-sized before? Feel free to share in the comments below or on our social media channels. That's all the time I have today. Be sure to check out the link in the show notes for more info on this moment in history. Take care, everybody. Well, folks, that's it for another edition of the Lessons for Success podcast. Thank you for listening. Remember that you can keep up with the show wherever podcasts are found, as well as the newly updated Lessons for Success YouTube channel. Be sure to follow the show on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, or TikTok to keep up with more content from the show. If you haven't already done so, give the show a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts. That's all the time I have for today. Be sure to tune in for the next episode of the Lessons for Success show.